This is for somebody who's tried it several times, tried total abstinence. They weren't able to be successful over the long run. And this is suggesting that to try to engage in activities to minimize harm to themselves, i.e. prevention of overdose or further harm by infectious disease, or worsening of their addiction. So the way that harm reduction works is to say, okay, if you're going to use, it's fine, but try to be smart about your use. Try to moderate your use. Try not to use to the point of excess. Try to engage in your activities of normal life. Try not to have a failure of those or breakdown, meaning that there's no loss of work hours or sleeping in or being late. Those sort of things. Those are indicators if they are coping well with their drug of choice, or if they're not coping well. The most commonly known harm reduction approach are safe injection sites for opioid users, typically heroin users. And in this situation, it offers them a lot of benefits. Number one, it's a safe environment, so if they have an overdose unintentionally or not, there's treatment right there, and they can give the medication naloxone, which is the antidote to an overdose. In addition, they can give rescue breathing, which would be the first step. From most experienced people who are working in safe injection sites know that that's the best way to approach it before giving naloxone. Also, they can give clean needles and supplies. This helps prevent the transmission of infectious diseases like hepatitis C and HIV. Education can be provided here. Ideally, they can also offer detox beds and housing from this point of contact. That would be the most ideal thing with safe injection sites. That's the most beneficial way that they can provide harm reduction techniques. The next thing for harm reduction now includes for opioid users, and in this situation is to consideration for harm reduction by taking opioid replacement therapy. So whether it's methadone, Suboxone, or other injectable opiates that help prevent people from going into detox, preventing them from going into withdrawals. By giving them these medications, it helps attenuate the nasty side effects of going through withdrawal, but it helps them function. So they're in the driver's seat and they can help control their life. When a person is going through detox, it is a horrible situation. I know because I've been through it personally, and it is very difficult to function in life. So the idea of going on the opioid replacement therapy is that it puts them back in the driver's seat because it takes away the detox horrible symptoms, and that is very beneficial to people because now they can get back to life, get back to work and start functioning. And this is a very helpful thing for a lot of people who are struggling with opioid addiction because they can now start functioning, and it clears their mind, and they can start making clear decisions which are not possible when they're going through withdrawal. The final thing for harm reduction, some of the newer things that are out there, is to provide safe drugs. I personally do not see any issue with providing medical grade heroin to drug users. This is not going to convert people into drug users, into IV drug users, because that just doesn't happen. People don't graduate into IV drug use because a clean drug is available. People are in this because they've already graduated to that drug use because they were opioid users by snorting, inhaling, digesting pills, or melting them down, and to the point where they started injecting. It's a stepwise approach to get to the point of IV drug use. And so by providing clean quality medical grade heroin, which is otherwise known as diacetylmorphine, reduces the chances of having an overdose. It's as simple as that, because most heroin that's taken from the street is contaminated with fentanyl, and they don't know how much is in it, and this is how so many people are unintentionally dying from opioid overdose. There's a huge section of people out there in the drug using community that are IV drug users who are taking contaminated heroin. The same argument could be said for the rest of the drug using community out there who are crushing down tablets, snorting it, thinking that it's OxyContin, but really it contains fentanyl. It's unavoidable that this is now happening. Most opioids on the street nowadays are contaminated with fentanyl. So why not give consideration to providing clean drugs, medical grade? And this seems totally crazy to some people. Like, why would we provide medical grade drugs to people? But the point is that this is an opioid epidemic. This is a crisis that's going on because people are taking drugs that are tainted with fentanyl. That's the most common way. Can I practice harm reduction by myself? It's a difficult thing to do, to quit alone. Addiction is an illness of isolation, whereas recovery is about being connected with other people. And it's a strong urge that people want to just take care of themselves. It's unfortunate that in our society nowadays we tend to be very isolated. Even on the internet, that's not enough. We need connection. To be physically present with other people is most conducive to good mental health and recovery. So I would say it's best not to engage in a program simply by yourself. It's better to be involved in the community, whether it's with self-help groups like 12 Steps or harm reduction things like rational recovery or smart recovery. The idea is that we're connected with other people. We are social animals. We need to be with other people to talk about things. When we're speaking about our problems, it tends to remove the drama from it, and we're able to think a little more rationally, as opposed to the squirrels that run around in our heads, particularly at night. So harm reduction does imply, minimizing a person's drug use or alcohol intake. It implies things like self-discipline, self-control, which is very hard to do. A person could have all the right motives in the beginning, but when they start using, it sort of disinhibits them and they lose interest in those original thoughts that they had of controlling their use. But the idea would be, in the ideal world, is to have control over how much intake you are having. That is at the very basis of harm reduction. Moderating our intake is another word for it. So that can be done by yourself, but really the treatment over the long term to sustain this is to learn the tools necessary for an enduring recovery. And that's been discussed in many other questions that I've answered, but just very briefly, this involves cognitive therapy, being aware of myself, being aware of the stress and emotions that I'm going through, learning to speak to others when I'm going through a tough time, getting out of myself, maybe journaling a little bit, prayer, meditation, mindfulness, recreation. Those are the things that really can help, whether a person is doing complete abstinence or harm reduction, but it's learning how to cope with life on life's terms and being able to manage with your stress. So to answer the question again, yes, a person can practice harm reduction by themselves. However, it's very difficult, very unlikely they'll have an enduring, solid recovery if there's continue to be isolated. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it in the comments box below. Thank you.